This is going to be a bit hellish, if only because with you two guys we can get lots and lots of questions done, but the hellish bit comes in the number of PowerPoint slides we can try and get through in 2 hours or as long as it takes. This presentation is abbreviated from one that lasts all day long, so it really is heavy going. There's about 50-60 slides, but we'll stop at any particular time you want to. If there's anything you're not sure about, just shout out. And as Graham said, you get a printout of the materials you've got now. You get a recording of the presentation, this horrible voice you're going to hear all day long, and there's about 10 or 12 other items to download afterwards. We'll just look at them now. 13 things to download afterwards electronically, because I think they'll be more used to you electronically rather than the other format. Okay, so thank you for your background. So both have got some idea of what this subject's all about and some idea of what this course is all about. Let's hit the show and get going. We'll look at this in sort of 5 ways. Look at AS theory, and then coursework, and then A2 theory, A2 coursework. Try and hit a break round about the end of AS. There's only 2 of you guys. It's okay with you. We'll just hit a break. When we finish the AS rubbish, we'll hit a break. And we'll look a bit at schemes of work, but that's largely up to the centre. Okay, moving on very, very quickly. Thinking for you guys, the more you see this stuff, the better. Oh, we seem to have lost Emma. That's not cool. Oh, hang on a second. Mark, if you don't mind, I'm going to hang on a second. We seem to have lost Emma on the attendees list. So we'll just hang on while they're sorting themselves out. Okay, as you can see on our spec, Mark, we have 60% of the course is theory. They take an exam. This year it was June the 6th, I think. Next year it's about the same sort of time. Welcome back, Emma. June the 7th, you've missed nothing. June the 7th next year. A 2-hour exam, 7 compulsory questions, each worth 12 marks. The odd one out is the 7th question. We'll look at that in more detail in a second. There's then 40% of the course is coursework. It's called Fed 2. Students do 2 activities and or roles, which means in essence those 2 activities could both be as a role of an official, they could both be as a performer. You could even do the same activity in 2 different ways. You could play football and referee football. So it's any possible combination of activities roles. There's about 60 activities. There's 3 roles: official, performer, and coach. Get marked out of 50 for each activity. 2 marks added together give mark out 100. It's normal for the students that take this to be good. If they're not good, they may struggle to pass the coursework. The coursework standards are quite high. A reminder for you guys, anything that comes up, there's a question. If I'm going too fast or too slow, the only way you can tell me is to type something in the chat window, tell me to shut up, and I'll answer your question straight away. Okay, Fed 1 exam, the June exam, 7 questions. The first 2 questions are on physiology, second 2 are on skill, third 2 are on opportunities for participation. It's straight from the spec. Question 7 is the odd one out. It's the extended stretch and challenge aspect of the course. It's the only question where they also get a mark for their quality of written communication, that their grammar, if you like, and their spelling. The other 6 questions, they don't get a mark for that. Okay, a bit more depth. Told you it's going to be quick. Questions 1 and 2, the physiology. There's 7 topic areas, things like lungs and blood and the heart and anatomy and nutrition and rubbish like that. 2 of those 7 topics will tend to be examined, sometimes 3 per question. So maybe a question, for example, on anatomy, a question on the heart, a question on nutrition. They tend to be themed. So the question usually has some sort of scene setting, some sort of scenario been written down. So maybe a question, because it's relevant at the moment, football, question on football, image of a football player, and saying, okay, in terms of anatomy, names of the joints involved, the types of joints, the muscles that cause various movements when you're kicking a ball, for example. And then maybe some sort of idea of the fitness components required to be a relatively talented football player. And then maybe something about the footballer running on the playing field like a nutcase, and therefore a couple of questions about the heart, for example. So that's the theme and how it's approached. Tend to be 1 to 4 mark questions. And that means that usually, because it's just 2 questions and 2 or 3 topic areas per question, quite often there's 1 topic area not covered. So there might be, for example, on any particular year, no questions on nutrition, or no questions on levers, or no questions on the heart. It has happened. One of the many bits of material you're going to get from the Dropbox when we finish the stuff today is the AS and the A2 specification, but written out in far more depth than is available in the AQA spec. It says things like you need to know this when it talks about the conduction system of the heart. You need to know this when it talks about the idea of selective attention. You need to know this when it talks about Sport England. So that's sort of a rewrite. And the reason why it's on Dropbox is because it's mine, it's not AQA's. It's just written a few years ago, some general ideas of what the sort of things might come up in the exams. There's sort of in-depth, if you like, rewriting of the specification. And that's in the Dropbox stuff. With questions in questions 1 to 6, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for teachers to get the students to understand the command words that we use. The exam people spend hours, literally hours, debating, dithering, discussing, and then the other words you can think about being with D, which command word is the appropriate one to use for a particular question. And you will find that the command word dictates the marks. And there was a great example that, sorry to sort of annoy you, I was marking today, where the question was about the benefits to society of increased participation. But the command word was explain. So the command word explain essentially means give me a reason why. So just saying that a benefit to society is there's less strain on the national health system, you had to give them a reason why that was the case. That's because people tend to be fitter, tend to be healthier, therefore don't get ill, don't go to the doctors, less strain on the national health system. That was 1 mark. It was an explain question. And lots of students are getting that wrong. They're not explaining the benefits. They're just stating the benefits. Social control, less crime, for example, without giving the reason. It's less crime because the kids that caused the crime are actually doing sport instead. And without the reason, they get no marks. So another piece of rubbish you're going to tell me it is later on. The second thing in the Dropbox is some sort of document about command words that we use in this subject and how important they are and what they actually mean. And it will apply both to the AS exam, Fed 1, and the A2 exam, Fed 3. And it details what we mean when we say explain. It details what we mean when we say states. It details what we mean when we say other words. Is that okay? So that's another sort of relative goodie. Really emphasize the need for the students to understand the command words we use. They're very important. Questions 3 and 4 in Fed 1 is the skill acquisition area of the specification. And in skill acquisition, there are only 3 topics. And those 3 topics are skill, characteristics, and classification. Then the second topic area is information processing, and the third topic area is learning. The big hassle with this area is that learning and information processing are huge topic areas. So in general, again, there'll be 2 questions, 3 and 4, 2 topic areas per question, yeah, okay, 2 to 4 marks per question, yeah, that's fine. Generally, over the 2 questions, the norm is to have 2 areas from information processing being examined. So maybe a question, for example, on memory, and a question, for example, on decision making. There might be a question on one learning theory, for example, schema theory, and another question on the transfer of learning. So there'll be 2 areas from IP 2 areas from learning. What's weird about the skill acquisition area is that it's easier here for the examiners to ask questions that, that cover the way the paper is split up. The paper is split into 2 areas. 2/3 of the marks in the whole paper are for knowledge and understanding. It says on that 4th bullet point, what is this? Knowledge and understanding. The second third of the marks over the whole paper are the effects of that knowledge on performance, the application of that knowledge to performance. Now the physiology section is quite hard to have effects on performance being examined. You know that the quadriceps muscle, it's quite hard to get how having a weak or a strong quadriceps muscle can affect performance. So the questions 1 and 2, the physiology, tend to be mainly knowledge and understanding questions. But here in skill, it's relatively easy. It's relatively easy to ask questions on topic area. Say, what is this, and how can a coach improve it, or how can the performer improve it? So, for example, a standard question might be, what do you understand by the term selective attention? First part of the question, part A, and then part B, how can you improve selective attention? How can a coach make sure selective attention is being improved? So you often get 2 parts to the question. And again, the command words, state, explain again. Explains in every way. Half the marks are going to be in this paper for explain questions, by the way. And the equivalent word to explain that's used quite a bit in skill acquisition, especially when we're talking about classification of skills. Now, is javelin throwing open or closed skill, comma, justify your answer, explain your answer, give me a reason for your answer. But justify tends to be the word the examiners use when they're talking about classification of skill.